Beyond.
Welcome, everybody, once again to Beyond episode 388. I'm your host, Max Scoville. Joining me, Marty Sleva.
Hey, how's it going?
Brian Altano.
Rap.
And
Whoa,
Jared Petty.
I don't have a pithy opening.
Oh.
We'll give you one.
Okay.
He called you pithy.
A pithy opening. I thought that was one whole word for a second.
Pithy opening.
No, a pithy opening.
Like a apotheon or something? Just a pithy opening.
I had a friend who's Episcopalian, but
There you
I don't
go.
know,
Zing.
Yeah.
Zazz.
That's it. Right there. Comic
Wait, Zaz,
gold.
like the
Wow.
Batman serial killer?
Sure.
gold.
Sure. Yeah. Like, or that's the later half of pizzazz.
Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a PlayStation podcast sometimes. Today we're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff. There's Bloodborne to continue talking about because it's still a thing everyone's still playing.
Yep.
Have people beat it a lot yet? Is it still kind of...
I think 3 people in our office have beat it.
So people out there have beaten it, but it definitely is not a game that people are like immediately just...
It's not a rental, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's a rental anymore because those don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's the what's the box?
The hot box.
The red box
Hot
in the
box.
supermarket.
You don't
Yeah.
go down to the Farmore, get the game cartridges.
You don't go to your Safeway and climb inside the Red Box Wigwam.
There's probably still some games buried in the Blockbuster Video in your town that's haunted and full of goats.
You know
The
what?
Blockbuster Video at Church and Market is literally derelict the entire year, except it turns into a spooky Halloween store
Oh, that's kind of cool.
man.
in October. Yeah.
I live up not too far from Berkeley, and there is still like a functioning video store up there, kept alive by hippies, and it's kind of wonderful. They got a lot of great
It's
It's
also
movies.
not
kept
that
alive
much.
by
That's-
drugs.
Oh, by drugs?
Yeah.
Really?
Probably.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was unaware of that. Is the drug trade used in video rental? Like, is
I
that
passed a video store in Alameda, and I was just like, "What is this?
Oh, I love that
Whoa,
place.
It's
No, it's fun to go
ironic,
in there.
Weird,
Yeah,
crazy,
exactly. Bay Area living.
Other
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
to talk about. There's Dragon Age DLC is coming to PS4 later. Are we upset about timed DLC exclusivity? Fighting games are always a thing, and Mortal Kombat X seems to be the most hotly talked about one. Let's hotly talk about it. Rainbow Six Siege previews. How much do you hate drywall? Because here's a game for you.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about some Axiom Verge today too.
Absolutely.
A little bit
I
out
already
of it.
just reviewed that.
That's in the drop. I narrowed the drop down to 3 things.
All right.
Beautiful.
Drop.
But first, I want to do a little community outreach. Jared, you pulled together this wonderful cross section of what everyone does. People
Yeah.
in our Beyond group. Yeah, explain this.
Yeah, this is the Beyond Facebook group, who are just a spectacular organization of people who I love talking with. One of them said, "Hey, here's what I do for a living. I'm a screen printer," and he put this cool picture up where they were screen printing like radiation warnings in his business. He said, "What do y'all do for a living?" Well, like over 150 people responded.
Yeah.
And it's this just great cross section of the IGN community, and I think it's really neat.
let's each
yeah,
take one.
let's
We're gonna
grab
pick
some
our
of these. Let's
teams.
see. Here, pick teams.
All right,
There we
Brian,
go.
You get that one.
And we printed a lot of these out.
Here's the last. I got a really short one. I got kind of a fine.
Yeah, just
Ooh,
grab
I got a
whatever.
really good one.
Oh, did you get a good one?
Meat cutter at Costco.
There we go. That's awesome, though. But I mean, that's part of the community. That's one of the people who listens to this show, watches this show, comments on the boards there. You know, this. I love that. You know, meat cutter. What else?
I have a projectionist at the Alamo Draft House. I have an adult film actor with an exclamation point after it.
Okay.
I have a game designer.
And I'd like to point out that the adult felt after with the exclamation point is not the same as the person who's doing porn on their webcam to pay for college,
Is that
which
one
was
not
also
having
on the
an
list.
Which is also
yeah.
here.
What was
Yeah.
Which is also not the same as Milkman,
No, which is on your list.
which is on my list.
What?
Yep.
That's it. We got a porn people
mean,
doing stuff.
That's what he says. He says he's doing the porn.
Wow.
Wasn't the, yeah.
I got one. I make great stuff insulating foam. Woohoo! The woohoo is, I think, probably sarcastic, but that stuff is actually really that is great stuff. You can use that to make foam props. You can make. I bet you if you told that to some cosplayers, they'd be impressed because that stuff is fun for making stuff out of it.
Max, do you like make foam animals out of like industrial foam?
I make weird crafty things in my house.
Oh, really?
sometimes, Yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
tried to make a sword out of great stuff foam, but I didn't put enough of it down, so it came out kind of weird.
Dude, we have a project manager for Air Force satellite programs.
Oh, I like that one.
There's a lot of people that see each other a lot, probably. Like, there is a guy that works at a sheriff's office and also a truck driver. They probably have to see each other at court every week.
Smokey and the Bandit. That's
Yep.
right. Get there. Watch out there for Smokey.
Somebody that fixes appliances, which is helpful because they break.
This is cute. This is in response to the radiation screen printer. This person's a radiation therapist. I treat cancer with radiation, and I see those posters that you make everywhere I look.
Oh, there we
How
go.
cute is that?
Yeah,
Small
yeah, pictures
world.
of it. It's kind of
We're all
awesome.
connected
wow,
with
look at this guy.
cancer and radiation.
We have a purveyor of dark mischief at Home Depot Night Crew. So I guess he's sort of like a 2x4 conjurer.
Yeah, like a sorcerer.
Yo, I bet, like, in all honesty, that I bet there's times when that job is the most dismal, depressing, like, just brutally, like, tiring thing, and I bet there's other times when it's like totally ridiculous.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
like
I mean,
a
yeah.
raccoon came in and ate all the cactuses.
Yeah. I worked in a.
No, man, I used to do like late night. I used to work graveyard shift at a Chevron.
Yeah.
I posted this on Twitter the other day, but yeah, I remember having some fun times when I was being trained when it was just me and this other guy, and it's like there's nothing to do, so you just kind of dick around, you just hang out, and
Yeah.
do weird stuff.
Yeah.
Now, I
that
worked in a
your-
warehouse once where a goat got in there. That was
What?
that was- yeah. A goat wandered
Why?
into the warehouse because I lived in the middle of nowhere in North Carolina, and it was a sock mill, and he was attracted to the big giant like piles of boxes and kept like climbing up on top of them. And
That's the most
Yeah.
beautiful mental imagery I've
Yeah.
conjured up in quite some time.
it's the most fun anyone's ever had in a sock mill. I can tell you that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You keep saying sock mill?
Yeah, sock mill. Yeah, I mean,
Like
we,
socks?
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry,
we made
just,
socks. I worked at a sock factory in
were
the
they
warehouse.
nice?
Why was there a mill?
Did you wear them?
Well, the mill. What's that?
Did you wear the socks?
Actually, I didn't wear the socks
were they like
made.
were they like children's?
They were
ladies'
all
socks?
kinds of socks. We made socks of all shapes, all sizes. We also had a situation where a lot of them were
like one side,
yeah,
one shape.
a lot of them
foot.
were misdyed and turned pea colored one day. It was all kinds of fun things. But no, I worked in a building between like on one side with these giant like washing machines and dryers the size of houses, and this constant steam came pouring out at about waist level from there. It's about 130 degrees in that room all the time. The other side was the knitting room, and there was just like lint everywhere. And I worked between them in the warehouse, so I was covered in that steam and covered in the lint. It would just form like a paste
So you
all
just
over your
looked like
body.
a Yeti all the
I
time.
did, yeah.
Just-
It was a horrible
Did
job.
you have to sock hop to get it off?
You did not have to sock up. There was very little joy except for the goat in the sock factory. There really was.
That was why they turned yellow that day, because the goat fell in the machine and died.
Yeah, yeah, that
That
was
is
a.
color. What was your last job before you came into dumb video games?
Oh, I mean, I ran my own company before this, but I've had
But
bad
it's about
jobs.
video games, right?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
video games.
Well, before video games.
Before video games, I had a bunch of really bad jobs. I mean, I did freelance illustration and art. I also worked at Staples for a whole summer, which is an office supply store.
Yeah.
And the best thing I ever did there was people came up to me while I was wearing my Staples uniform, and they're like, "Can you help me find these graphite pens?" And I was like, "I don't work here."
Brian, I want a video game about being you with a summer job. Like I love that you will occasionally just casually bring this up. Like we'll go to Office Max
Yeah.
or something, and you'll be like, "Yo, when I worked here, I used to play this game where I'd have to go and put the carts away, or as I like to call it, smoke cigarettes."
Yep.
It's just like
Smash stuff.
you would just be like, they'd be like, "Can you stock the shelves?" You'd be like,
No.
"Yeah, okay," and you just like throw stuff on top.
I would just throw stuff on top. And
I
then
kind of
leave.
imagine that game as like a top-down 16-bit RPG, and the menus are all like do your job, and then it's like 4 other ludicrous choices. That sounds wonderful.
Speaking of games,
Yeah, we could talk about games, I guess.
Oh, can we talk about the guy who builds tanks for a living?
Honestly,
first?
we talk
that's a
about.
good job.
I would,
Yeah.
tanks.
tanks, dermatology biller,
Also,
plumber.
wasn't I Build Tanks? Wasn't that like a Wii U launch title?
I build tanks. No, that was tank.
That was Tanks for Nothing.
Yeah. Pretty good arcade game. Terrible Wii game.
Thanks for nothing.
These are, I don't know. I'm like honestly more interested in all these things because we talk about video games all the time. But people want to hear us talk about video games. So let's talk about video games.
All right.
Bloodborne, the final review went up.
Yeah.
That's the
Uh-huh.
thing.
9.1.
9.1, 9.1.
Yeah, it's an amazing, exciting, exhausting pilgrimage through a gorgeous land that imposes the feeling of approaching the bottom of a descent into madness, though the extended load times and minor frame rate hitches have an effect on the pacing. It's otherwise an intensely challenging and rewarding game. There's an incredible power to unlocking its mysteries and in succeeding despite its demand for a pound of your flesh.
You're like Twista.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
You spit hot flame.
Micro machines.
We
Yeah.
gave reviewer Brandon Tyrell a round of applause when he had come out into the room and said, "I'm done with it. I'm finished with it. My review is up." That was I know it's we just went through a litany of people who have real jobs.
Yeah.
But that is a mentally, emotionally exhausting thing to
Yeah.
really spend 16 hours a day on.
He really did look like he'd had the blood drained from his body.
Yeah.
We've teased people about working hard reviews before, but by the end of the week, Brandon really did just look sick.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, imagine sitting at a computer job all day. That tires you out in a weird way. And now imagine that it's somehow mentally like you're really intently focusing on it, and
Yeah.
then it's like pushing back against you. And then
Yeah.
imagine you're trying to do something that requires a solid 40 hours of your time in a matter of days. Like it's
And the game is very difficult, and it is literally, you can't just be like, well, it's too hard, I stop. It's like, no, I have to finish this or else I will get in trouble at work.
Yeah, he looked at the end of that. He just looked divorced. Like he look, I don't think he's not married, but he went into that and he went into that a young man and he came out a divorced middle-aged guy.
Yeah.
Like
Which is amazing because he's been here a month and a half.
Yeah.
Oh, Marty, you did Dark Souls 2, right?
Yeah, I did the guide for Dark Souls 1 and then I reviewed Dark Souls 2. We had a much longer lead time on those games, though.
Yeah.
We literally got the game on Wednesday and the embargo was up Monday. So
Yeah,
That's pretty
We noticed a lot of sites put up their reviews with scores, and we were just not really ready to do that.
yeah, and we didn't test the online stuff. There's like 60 hours of stuff to do in that game, and so I was, a lot of people were complaining that we were later than other sites, but I would rather be thorough than hate
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize that we if we get it right the first time, which hopefully we do, then that review exists for years. Like people think about the reader service of the first 3 days when a game comes out and people are looking it up, but people are going to look up Bloodborne review for the next 20 years. Some of our most trafficked articles on IGN are actually our top 25 PSP games.
Yeah, year in, year out, top 25 PSP
People
games.
want to find out, people find a way to play PSP games or piracy, whatever it is. They want to find out the best ones, and they go back and they look for them. So, I mean, people are going to be reading about Bloodborne for a very long time. And this is probably, I don't want to call it a new franchise, but it sort of is, like the beginning of...
Yeah, I mean, this one, more so than the other games, this one has been the one that I think a lot of newcomers have hopped onto. I noticed just between emails and between the Facebook group and between Twitter, people who didn't play the Souls games are latching onto this. And part of it is because, you have a PS4 and you want something cool and shiny to play on it, and everyone is talking about this game.
Yeah.
Sure.
But part of it is the game is a little more accommodating and it makes more sense to new people because of its kind of quicker pace.
So you didn't say easier.
I don't think it's easier. I don't think it's easier at all, but I think the combat is more analogous to traditional third-person action games.
Okay.
And the combat is everything's sort of streamlined. There are less stats.
Yeah.
There are less weapons. There are less sort of classes and roles you can play. Everything is sort of funneled into this one path of you need to be quick and nimble and aggressive and angry. And that's what the game's about. And I think that's what a lot of action games are.
I thought the appeal was the ability to play as Jason Bloodborne. I mean,
Jason Bloodborne and his Bloodborne identity.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you discover at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean that's the big spoiler at
And
the
then
end, right?
3/4 through, you
I
got
think
Jeremy
the
Renner.
spoiler at the
sequel,
end is that you are suddenly divorced. And
Oh, okay.
you look in the mirror and you are a skeleton.
I'm just
So-
only out for the Bloodborne Ultimatum DLC.
It was either last week or the week before I said that I wanted to wait a little bit until the community dove into this game and kind of ripped it open and kind of maybe wrote a few tutorials about how to spend the first hour. And it looks like everyone did that.
Yeah.
So now I'm excited to actually get in there.
Yeah.
You could go to IGN.com wikis and look at that right now.
I heard about that popular gaming website.
It is a popular gaming website providing free quality game guides.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Full of beautiful, talented people such as Jared Petty.
Actually, that one's Brendan Graber joint. So.
I was just giving you a compliment. Just take it.
Oh, I'll take it. I will accept it in the spirit that it is given.
Kiss.
Just don't give it away.
Would you? I'm going to turn on the sprinklers.
Fine.
Just get a spray bottle.
We're having a moment.
So Dragon Age DLC is coming to PS4 later than it is to the Xbone.
The bone.
Let's see. Coming to PS4.
So it already came out. It already came out on Xbox One and
Yep.
on PC. And BioWare was being very kind of cagey about when the PS4 version was going to come out. And evidently it was because contractually they had to be cagey, which is sort of messed up a little bit.
No, that's kind of messed up a lot.
That's
it's
a
a
question
real-
you expect people to give you. It's like, they're releasing DLC on one platform. When am I going to get it on my platform? The game came out at the same time on, in its original.
According
I
to
want
the
to play
game's
it.
official Twitter account, the DLC will be coming to PlayStation 4, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 sometime in May. It was released as a timed exclusive for Xbox One and PC last week. And, because of the exclusivity contract, they were unable to comment on when it would be coming to platforms.
I had much less problem with the fact that it was exclusive for a while than the fact they wouldn't tell me when I could play it. That was silly.
Yeah.
That was just silly.
I mean, that's a new wrinkle in the sort of ongoing exclusivity battles that we've seen over the last, 15 years now. Probably even longer than that. I think it's sort of ridiculous. Like, at the very least, be like, this is when you have it, and then I know what to play in the meantime while waiting for the next thing to happen. Like, that's kind of ridiculous.
I mean, we're at the same point with Rise of the Tomb Raider as well.
Yeah.
Like, we know that it's a timed exclusive to Xbox One, but it's like, well, what does timed mean? Does time mean 3 months? Does time mean 6 months? Does time mean a year? I think it's anti-consumer on everyone's front to not at least put the time down. I mean, timed exclusivity is sort of anti-consumer to begin with. Anti-fans of the things you own, but I get it because that's where money comes from. I mean, I've played like 15 hours of Dragon Age, so the idea of this 10-hour thing, 100 hours into the game doesn't really bother me too much because there's enough for me doing that. I don't know.
Was this something they announced it? Like, did they announce that this was going to have a exclusivity? Did they up front go like, this is probably going to have more of a fun time for Xbox One buyers? Or because I know they did that with some stuff. Destiny was up front like, this is going to be better on PS4. We're going to get a different gun. You're going to get stuff faster.
Yeah.
There's a handful of things.
Most games do it up front. Ubisoft always does it. Like this year, it was Assassin's Creed Unity was very much Xbox One forward foot, whereas Far Cry 4 was PlayStation because you got the keys to corrupt.
Activision was Destiny. Call of Duty was the Xbox. They probably look at some incredibly dense spreadsheet that tracks all the different formulas and the demographics and focus groups and everything. And but I
feel like there's just a big column that has the more whichever one has more dollar signs.
Sure.
I really think it's as simple as that. I would love to live in a world where I could believe that people were like, you know what, they're gonna really love this gun on PlayStation. Like, I don't think that happens. I think the last time something like that really happened was like Soul Calibur, where they're like, Kratos is in this game and Link is in this game.
But Link.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Who cared? There
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't like
Soul Calibur, you silly man.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was I'm less interested in what the actual content is of this and more enraged at the way it's being delivered.
It's just it's gross political stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a fan of that. And it's buyer's remorse, Like, this doesn't make me want to run out and buy an Xbox One. It's just, I'm not going to anyway for DLC. It's just like it's a weird. The term is niggling. Like, it's just like a petty little here's a little tiny little thing that you can't have. Oh.
I like this voice that you're making.
Yeah,
I don't want to say it's petty, because I feel like that would.
I've been getting it my whole life. Don't worry about it. So.
Well, I'm glad you're not being petty about it.
My father was adopted. Real last name was Benson. There we are.
Was it? Ooh.
Yeah.
Why did he pick Petty and not Party?
He didn't pick it. That was his.
That's not how adoption works.
His adoptive father.
You can change your name to Jared Party.
Jared Party.
It's not like an AOL screen name where you're like, that was taken. Would you want this one?
No, my first of my people were the Bensons. They were from the Sweden, like the Ursteamer, dirty, like that.
Oh, okay.
That,
Like
people are going to be very confused
cartoon
and
chef.
think that their thing. Would you be less appalled / enraged about this if they came out at the same time, but the way like Microsoft positioned it was like, hey, because of a deal we signed with them, Xbox One owners get it for free, whereas PS4 owners have to pay for it.
Ooh, that's
sort of as a like, it's the platform owners saying, obviously this is not the reason, but it's always them saying to the fans like,
That's
hey,
really
we
fascinating.
got this one.
I'd rather that seems less petty. That seems less of a really just tedious little. It seems less.
Actually, I like that a lot because instead of them spending all the money to make sure that someone else can't play it, they're spending all the money to basically just eat that.
And
that
it's
loss.
almost them saying like, hey, thanks for buying it on our platform. This one's on us. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
like that
that's a great.
Sure.
That's a great idea.
okay.
Yeah.
Free stuff. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I like free stuff.
Yeah.
We did it. We just solved the console.
We just solved
war.
DLC.
Look at that.
Look at that.
We
Our
solved DLC.
businessmen of the business.
Businessmen of the business.
I like this is a story.
It's my new wave
This
band.
is what it says in our notes here. Fighting games aren't super popular, but Mortal Kombat X is. Why? And then below that it says, we have a ton of coverage on the site.
These are show notes. These are not supposed to be looked at. These are not
I
forward
think Mortal
facing.
Kombat is great, but I don't like other games. Let's talk about Mortal Kombat.
So Mortal Kombat is, you look
Trash
at the. We know a lot about you, people who watch and listen to Beyond. We can tell what you're reading.
know what jobs you have.
Yeah, we can tell what you're reading, where you're reading it, what you're watching, when you're watching it, how far down the page you're scrolling, and your social security numbers.
You search for regular numerals instead of Roman numerals.
We do know
faster.
that. Yeah, we do know that.
Faster type Final Fantasy 1.5 than XV.
We've got the power
same
of
number of keys.
Analytics.
Yeah.
Anyway, and one of the things we've learned is that a whole lot of you are really excited about Mortal Kombat X, about Mortal Kombat 10. So it's interesting because fighting games used to be a humongous deal. I mean, people talk about Donkey Kong Country winning the war in '94 and being the big deal on the Super Nintendo, but I think it was Street Fighter 2 that was probably more important. Being a home exclusive for the Super Nintendo as long as a timed exclusive for the Super Nintendo. And fighting games were huge in arcades. They were huge at home. And then right around the crap fest that was Killer Instinct, it all kind of fell off a cliff.
Excuse me.
And
Full
Yeah.
gore.
No, sorry. Excuse me.
okay.
That is
Really?
It's a. I mean, I like it because I was in 4th grade.
Max has a Jago tattoo.
Well, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
I like Spinal.
I thought you had a Kenner tattoo.
Well, Jared, the same thing that happened with fighting games was happening with consoles around the same time, where like everybody had a console. There were just hundreds of. There was like the Panasonic and the all of a sudden they all went away, right?
Yeah.
And like only 3 remained. And the same thing happened. And you couldn't go into. You could throw a quarter in an arcade and it would bounce off 15 different machines, and they were all bad aside from like 3 or 4. And the 3 or 4 that were great were really great, and they're the ones that actually survived. I mean, it was fascinating to see Mortal Kombat, especially. I remember playing Mortal Kombat 2 in the arcade, and in that same arcade they had a launch party for Mortal Kombat 2 on consoles, and a friend of mine got a copy of the game like a few days early.
Yeah.
And we took the copy of the game and we went back because he won it, and we went back to his house, and that all weekend we played Mortal Kombat 2 at his house.
Yep.
And then Mortal Kombat 2 came out for Super Nintendo and Genesis that Tuesday, and we all went out and bought it. And when we looked around, we were like, why would we go back to the arcade? We have this here now.
Yeah.
And it was like they built the hand that, or they bit the hand that fed them, basically, all in one circle. Where all of a sudden, like, they had created this perfect arcade port, and a lot of people started doing that, and it was that was what all the boxes said, just like the arcades. And it was just like, yeah, you're right, but minus the lines, minus having to pay 25 cents for each thing, or having to get driven there or dropped off because we didn't have cars, for children. You don't give children cars.
It'd be
That's
weird if the kids
irresponsible.
had cars. It'd be messed up.
You do let them play games where they rip off each other's heads,
Don't let them drive cars.
but don't let them drive cars because
Yeah.
that's ridiculous. Sorry, I cursed.
That's all right.
Just write that down. The fighting game industry sort of helped to kill off themselves in the arcades, and then when that happened, a lot of the really bad arcade fighters didn't get to live another day.
Yeah.
Like things like time killers, right? Where you actually slice off people's arms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then some did, like Virtua Fighter. You could actually see like a lot of the 3D fighters started making it over. But I think people wanted less and less of those sort of like rotational circular fighting games. They wanted just a flat plane.
I think the initial gimmick was that it was, again, very much in that, like, oh, hey, wouldn't this be better if it was 3D?
Yeah.
If it was
Yeah.
polygons?
but
Like,
it worked with some games.
It
Like,
did,
worked
it
for
did.
Tekken.
It
Yeah.
totally
Like,
worked for
Tekken 2
Tekken.
and Tekken 3, especially on PS1, were huge.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the other thing.
That,
like-
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, but Tekken had a very long lifespan, but I would say that lifespan is kind of dried out. Like,
Oh.
I mean, there's still obviously.
There's some hardcore fans.
I'm
but
excited to
it's-
see what the hell Pokken is.
But it's-
there,
but
are,
it's
there
mass-
are still 7 Tekken machines in the world, and 4 of them are in our office.
That's
Yeah,
right.
but
that's
its
right.
mass appeal did die out. It's very popular
Yeah.
in the fighting game community. And again, I abstracted the timeline talking about Killer Instinct. No, there was a whole second wave of 3D fighters. Virtua Fighter began.
Yep.
That Tekken
Yep.
came along.
Battle
Think
Arena
about
Toshinden.
Yeah, that was crap. Soul Calibur, which
knock
was
people out of a ring.
which was
Great.
extraordinary. There were a lot of and also wonderful second generation 2D fighting games like Street Fighter Alpha 3, which when it came home was just almost arcade perfect. But the community kept shrinking.
Yeah.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about going back to a 2D plane. It's quick, it's comprehensible.
Totally.
And Mortal Kombat, but there have been other, Street Fighter 4 was a great 2D fighting game and popular, but not an iota nearly as popular as this Mortal Kombat 10 launch.
In
Looks like
Yoda?
Iota. A small amount.
From Tearaway?
No, not from Terra.
Yoda was in Soul Calibur.
Yeah,
on
Iota,
Xbox.
the Greek letter, Iota.
Damn it.
Not a tiny bit.
Yeah.
So why do you think this happened? Because my theory.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say my theory is that, and this is maybe totally out there, but my theory is that Street Fighter was basically perceived as more technical. I feel like Mortal Kombat's more accessible, which means that even when you drill down and you actually have the best people in the world playing both games, I'm sure they are just technical masterpieces. But when you're walking in a store and you see Street Fighter, you probably still associate it with this like high level play. Whereas I think for some odd reason, the gory, ridiculously violent game is somehow more accessible to people.
No, I think you're close to it there. And Mortal Kombat originally was not a particularly technically impressive game. It was just dumb and fun and easy to play. And when you brought it home with your friends, you weren't trying to execute the special moves. You were trying to execute the fatalities.
Well,
you weren't trying to do combos.
Believe it or not,
Yeah.
there was actually a time where we looked at the original graphics of Mortal Kombat and we said, that's amazing. It's so lifelike. And we didn't realize it was just basically 7 JPEGs of a guy standing and punching.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things with MK9, the last one that came out now with Mortal Kombat X, is that the games have this cinematic presentation to them to where you don't have to be good at them to have the camera zoom in and do things and give you this visceral response of, look what you did. There's an X-ray. You broke that man's crotch. Now he doesn't have a crotch.
No, and
Congratulations.
it's very much. We're also seeing kind of the rise of spectating games.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
esports and Twitch streaming and all that stuff.
Yep.
And I'd say a good kind of analog would be Street Fighter is to Counter-Strike as Mortal Kombat is to Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
It's like
interesting,
it is a dumber, more gratifying experience. If you're really good at it, you probably want the more technical and the more more involved kind of competitive side of things. But Mortal Kombat again it's a game where you could push 2 buttons and then the skeletons will fight each other's ladders.
Well, NetherRealm Studios has embraced the self-awareness. You know, when they came back with 9, that was brilliant. They're just like, we are the big stupid fighting game.
Yep.
And they did 2 smart things. One, they just owned that like nobody had ever owned it before. And second, they improved the fighting mechanics. That's the other part.
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat is a much better fighting game than it used to be. And Injustice improved on those mechanics.
Injustice is great.
And Mortal
Yeah.
Kombat 10 is going to improve on Injustice. That's the thing. Mortal Kombat is now a very good technical fighting game. And it's still stupid and fun. This is a game where Jason can fight Predator and where there's a Carl Weathers skin.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
All right, that
Yeah.
Can we
on a
talk
real
about-
game.
I love everyone in this office, and I love Vince, but the fact that he hates the fact that Predator and Carl
makes
Weathers
me-
are in
that
this
makes me
game
really angry.
makes me very upset.
Yeah. Perhaps
Yeah.
in Next Beyond we can just bring Vince in here and we can lay him on the table and I'll
I think
beat
we
him
should-
a little
yes.
bit. Just, you know.
I think
What if
that's actually a hate
I could
crime.
do my splits and then punch him in the junk, and then I'd be like, "Those were $500 sunglasses, asshole."
I just watched that again yesterday. What a fine motion picture by Paul W.S. Anderson.
Yeah.
Do you want to write down the part where Max said the A word?
So we
Oh,
probably
you know
ought
what?
to
We're
write
gonna let that
that
one slide because he was quoting art.
He was
true.
quoting
Yeah,
art.
if we put up a picture of the Venus de Milo, we wouldn't have to censor
Yeah,
her.
But, you know,
her
Vin-
breasts.
wasn't that guy in Melrose Place?
Venus de Milo?
No, the guy that punches Goro in the crotch.
Oh, I don't
So
know. Johnny
Vince-
Cage?
Vince-
Yeah, the character that plays Johnny
No,
Cage.
that
or
was,
the
he wasn't a
actor.
real actor.
No
He
one
was
knows what his
actually
name was.
a character in the
Yeah.
movie. Johnny Cage wasn't a real actor.
He was entirely
No.
claymation and practical effects.
Johnny Cage isn't real?
No, Johnny Cage is not real. He was not an actor who appeared in the Melrose
man.
Place.
Okay.
Yeah, but this
No,
MK9
well,
was a game.
Vince is actually echoing a lot of people's sentiments
Yeah.
about this, which I think there are purists around Mortal Kombat, which I do understand to an extension, but that is negated by the fact that Predator rules.
No. I agree. And this
Predator
is-
rules
Predator-
greater than purist.
Yeah.
Predator does rule. And this is a community of people who don't like Soul Calibur 2. And if you don't like Soul Calibur 2, I don't want to know you.
Yeah, and I got
That-
super into that game.
Yeah.
Are you a big
it's-
Necrid fan?
Oh. Todd, why did we like Todd McFarlane? Why was that allowed?
No, I mean while we're here, I loved Soul Calibur 2. I probably hated all the character design in that game.
No, most of it was good. It's just Necrid. Necrid was
Yeah,
the
well, no, a
one
lot of
terrible
it was
exception.
just like here's tits and cod pieces, which is I guess fine to an extent. But I like it was really just like chains and swords and dildos and boobs, and
Tits and cod pieces would be a great name for a podcast.
Yeah,
I mean,
or-
like, that
or
is
a band.
So SEO friendly. You got the tits, you got the cod. Just it's all good.
or a cooking
You
show.
got pieces for One Piece? Kids love One Piece?
Yeah,
Yep.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, despite all that, I mean, I thought the game was just so much fun to play, so much fun. And I was never really one of those like memorize every technical twitch of the joystick button combination guys. I actually really miss.
Yeah.
This is how old I am. I miss when you would play a game like that and the arcade in front of you told you what the combos were.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, oh, you got to do this and then 3 buttons in a row. It's like, oh, got that. I can't
do it.
I can type that in. You know.
Yeah.
Do you remember the blood code for Mortal Kombat on your Genesis?
Yeah, buy the Genesis version. Right?
Yeah,
Yep,
ABAC
there you go.
ABACABB. You had to enter that though.
You actually had to have cool parents
Yeah,
and not ones that bought you
Yeah.
the baby version.
Just going back really quick to the accessibility of MK9, like that's one of those games that the girl I was dating at the time like wasn't a huge gamer, but
Yep.
she loved playing that.
Yeah.
Because if you put it on easy, she could just mash buttons, and again, it gave you
And
that
look
satisfaction
awesome,
and
right?
look awesome.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that sense of reward, yeah.
and it's still a game that I have on my shelf when I have people who come over who aren't crazy into games, they look at the shelf like, oh man, Mortal Kombat. I remember this
Yeah.
from a kid. Can we
Yeah.
play this?
Oh, you
Fun.
pull
It's-
MK9
and it
out.
Stays true to the.
Yeah.
Yep.
And have you ever played Test Your Luck mode?
Oh yeah, that's great.
Oh, it's the best thing in the game. If you're not a like hardcore fighting game guy, it's just like a slot machine that's like one guy doesn't have arms and the other one can shoot meteors.
Yep.
And then you fight. It's
That's
great.
awesome.
It's so wonderful.
So I totally get it. I just don't see what a franchise like Street Fighter does to like win people back from a situation like that because I feel like the split is so.
Puts
I mean,
RoboCop.
Well, Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
It's coming.
Good God.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 5, and it's
PS4 exclusive.
exclusive.
Yep.
That's a That's a power play right there.
It is.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to playing it. Street Fighter 4 was wonderful. It is a very accessible game, despite being a high-level fighting game. You can sit down and just play Street Fighter 4.
And absolutely beautiful in completely different ways than Mortal Kombat is.
But you can't punch someone in the penis and stop them from having.
Yeah, and Predator's not in it, so I don't know if I'll be buying that.
And there's probably no Carl Weathers characters.
You can probably totally punch somebody in the penis in Street Fighter.
No, somebody in NetherRealms.
They just don't really go like, oh, my dick.
So
show you an X-ray, the outline of it. Just...
The whole Predator thing, somebody at NetherRealms was brilliant. Like, the character reveals for like 2 months were just, some guy walking out of a black background in shadows, right? And he just walks forward. It's like, Goro lives. And, and they do that character after character. When they come to like Predator, they have the 3 people come walking out of the background that were also revealed in that trailer.
Yeah.
They all come, and then he just like materializes in front of them. And you're like, oh, he's been standing there the whole time because he's Predator. That's
How cool
awesome.
is that? They probably bumped into him and he felt the weird thing on his back.
Yeah.
And
It was like some marketing guy was like, I am so cool.
and Johnny Cage is like, oh man, this movie's so realistic. I don't even understand the special effects. And they cut off his head and he's like, wow, that's crazy real blood that he never really knows he's in hell.
Just remember what Raiden said. Mortal Kombat is not about death, but life.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's not true. That is 100% about that.
It's about
Enough!
Mortal Kombat's about a guy with 4 arms punching a woman. For some reason, that's immensely popular.
We're talking about Rainbow Six Siege now, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Rainbow Six Siege. We got previews of this. We got to see it in action suddenly. It is Ubisoft's, I guess, return to form to the kind of tactical stealth co-op.
Yeah.
It won our game of show at E3.
It did.
Yeah. Despite the fact that I didn't get to play it.
Yeah.
I think I was the only person on this dumb staff that didn't get to play it.
No, I didn't get played either.
don't
I
know.
was
We're
too
both
busy
on the
formatting images that week.
I wouldn't know what I was too busy doing. I threw
I'm-
up during one of those press
So
conferences.
I was basically doing a 3-man operation at E3 last year, so I missed Rainbow Six. What did they show off at E3? Did they have it? They had it playable though.
Yeah, it was playable.
Yeah,
It was playable on the show floor.
I believe it was the demo that they were showing during
Yes,
the
it was
conferences,
that
right?
house. It was the woman was hostage.
That looked really good.
Yeah,
really,
that
really
looked
nice.
that looked incredible. That demo they showed during their press conference, and then playable. It was that same demo. Looked incredible. The big thing, like you mentioned, the drywall joke is it's just it's completely just blowing apart. Ceilings and floors and walls, and it actually feeds into
love
the
that.
gameplay because you blow a hole in the wall, and now you have a little place you can put your guns.
Yeah,
through.
McCaffrey just said he felt like the Kool-Aid band the whole time in the recent playthrough, and that's great.
That really appeals to me. Like this is a game that I remember trying to play. Like I remember trying to play one of the first Rainbow Six games at my friend's house. Like you would try to play, I don't know, any other shooter, but it doesn't work like that.
No.
It's this very serious tactical. Like you got to plan your moves
And if
out.
you get shot in the head, your round's done.
Yeah, and I was like, this is boring. And I was playing with like a trackpad on a laptop. I was like, this is the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
But now you have this whole operators dynamic they've added in, which is like pre-configured loadouts that you're sort of locked into, and there's about 20 of them apparently, and so you can't do all that much customization with your loadouts, but because of that, it allows them to create like your very focused skill set your team needs to act in cooperation with other people. But there's also an antithetical loadout on the other team that is designed to foil and counter you, and vice versa constantly. So you've got this sort of dark mirror rival on the other side a lot of the time that you're playing against.
Yeah.
I just love that.
Yeah. And there's like some of, obviously some of them are just going to be, heavy, have a lot of like a big arsenal, but then there's other guys who just have sledgehammers. It's all about just like busting down
That's
doors.
crazy.
Yeah. Busting down walls.
I really want to do that. I really just want to. I love the idea that's like the entire, like that could be the thing that really shakes it up. Like the same way that something like, Far Cry with the animals and stuff, it makes it less of a kind of predetermined, type of like stealthy approach. It's like if you're basing all your tactics around where walls are, but the walls are destructible, that gets interesting.
Yeah.
That gets really interesting.
Yep.
Well, that's awesome because you could be like, hey, we all need to guard this door, but it's like, what if they just come in from the ceiling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't guard the ceiling. Who guards
You
the
shoot
ceiling?
somebody through the floor.
Yeah.
It ups the sort of like sandbox ability of it, which means that you can just keep playing it differently each time. Even if they're like, we only have 5 maps in our game. And we're like, okay, cool. Like I can drill a hole through each one in a different angle every single time.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I like that
that's
a
pretty
lot.
awesome.
And
It's kind of
especially
a
the
red-
rounds go super quick too.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
the
that
rounds
I
are
didn't
like
know.
less than 10 minutes.
Wow.
That's like a Red Faction guerrilla with like tactics.
Yeah,
It
totally.
sounds like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Sledgehammers in games, man. We need more of them.
More of them.
Donkey
Yeah,
Kong
so-
had them.
Yeah. Ryan and Destin went to Montreal. They played it. They said, again, it still plays amazingly. One of their big complaints, though, was that the game certainly does not look as good as it did almost a year ago.
I'm kind of wish that somebody at Ubisoft would pump the brakes on this whole approach that they keep doing, which is like, yeah.
Like they said, by no means does the game look bad. I mean, we have footage on the site. By no means does it look bad.
Right.
It's not a bad-looking game. It's just when you see it, you're like, well, yeah, that's what a shooter should look now. but it still plays fantastically. But the thing we saw at E3 last year, like visually right from the get-go, it just like blew us out of the water.
Do you know what has the total opposite approach to this? Movies. Like
that?
you'll see, there was a Jurassic World trailer that they recut and republished, and it had better CG. Like the dinosaur jumping out of the water, eating the shark, suddenly looked better in the second version of the trailer.
Right.
Like things improve over time in the movie industry, for the most part. I'm sure somebody will let me know that I'm wrong, but in games, it's almost always the opposite.
Well, that's because in games, a lot of the time when they come to you and tell you they've got a game, what they've got is a 5-minute piece of the game that they've gotten down to like, well, we think the other 40 hours of it will look something like this, and when we build it this year and next, whereupon with a movie, by the time you see a trailer, at the very least, your principal photography is going to be in the can.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Difference is, though, is that a game has to function. A game has to work. You have to be able to go in and punch the drywall and see what happens. And I mean,
Sure.
in the case of Jurassic World, there's going to be like a 10-second segment where this fish thing comes out and
No, I mean,
plesiosaur or whatever.
I totally understand that, as much as I completely do not understand how games are made.
Yeah.
Which, for me to sit in a chair and be like, make the graphics better, like I have no concept of how that even works. That being said, I would rather not see something until they were ready to show
No,
it.
it's false advertising. That's the beautiful photos they have up at McDonald's of what the meal is going to look like, and then the thing you actually get is like this sad little wet.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny.
Woodland creature that they wrapped in a bag.
It's funny too because a lot of times the demos we see and even the demos we play at E3 are running on PCs that none of us could ever afford.
Yeah.
Even if we're seeing stuff at a Microsoft conference or even if we're seeing stuff at a Sony conference, it is running on a high-end PC. And the fact of the matter is that the highest-end PC you could build right now is 10 times more powerful than a PS4 or Xbox One are. And that's just a fact.
That's always the way it is.
It's going to
You
be
cannot-
technology. They had to
once
lock that hardware in 2.5 years ago.
Yep.
So let me ask this then: is it fair to, to really only show the best possible version of that game when predominantly the mass majority of people who will be playing it on consoles?
It's not fair because I don't even think the PC version of Rainbow Six is going to look
Will
like
look
what
like
it did.
what
at
we
E3.
saw, right?
Ubisoft's track record with PC ports lately has been pretty shoddy. So.
Yeah.
And it makes me worried, obviously, about the Division, which has totally gone into hibernation.
We had the same thing with Watch Dogs, where it had the visual downgrade to where Watch Dogs was still super fun to play.
Yeah.
But definitely wasn't as good looking as what we originally saw. The Division, we haven't got to play yet. I'm not going to be surprised that when we see it again, probably at E3, and get to finally go hands-on, possibly, that's probably going to not look as good as it did.
Maybe we could just make an IGN sticker that we slap on all the preview footage that's distributed. It just says, warning, this will probably look crappier when you buy it. I mean,
not representative of final product.
So I'll tell a quick story then, and I won't name the publisher or anything. But when I was at GameSpy, we received a package of screenshots for a video game, and we said, we're not publishing these. And the publisher said, why? And we said, because they're not real. These are lies. Nothing looks this good. Nothing has ever looked this good, and we don't believe you. And they said, okay. And they got back to us with a realistic, believable set of renders that were actually pulled from in-game, and we said, great, we'll put these up. They still look awesome. Thank you for being honest with ourselves and our audience.
It's good on the publisher. I mean, first off, obviously good on you guys for calling them out on that, but then good of the publisher to actually supply you something.
Totally. And I mean, it was a redemption saga, so I should feel comfortable telling the name, but I won't because
this
goes all the way back to the magazine era. I mean, it used to be you'd get like a magazine cover and it'd be like, "This is a real screen grab." That was a big thing. You know,
Well, it used to be before they could really even print photos. You look at old Atari ads, and they had somebody draw it. They're like, "Yeah, draw Frogger," and they're like, "All right."
Yeah, the notion of the notion of bull shots, as we've called them, has actually gone back. Probably until Atari, when it was just like there was a painting of this minefield exploding and like 6 people running
even
at it.
Beyond the minefield, they would just they were like, it's yeah. I mean, you'd have like, I think I have old issues of X-Men or whatever, and it's like Hubert and Pitfall and stuff like that. And it's like they're illustrations of Atari screens, and Atari screens were simple enough that you could do that, and nobody would get too mad because you're like, if you tried to photograph the CRT screen that this is?
It looked
working on?
awful.
It's actually really fascinating that you bring up comic books, because I remember specifically there were a lot of comics in the 90s where the covers were these amazing paintings, and you open them up and they were handled by a completely different set of
totally.
illustrators.
Yeah, I
Still do
remember
that all
that.
the time. It's
Yeah,
very
they still do
common.
that. How? And that's insane.
It's just because the cover illustrators don't necessarily do sequential stuff. So
There was something special about like really glossy magazine covers too that made bull shots look even better.
You're right.
Like, you
Yeah,
know?
totally.
Like I remember seeing, I think it was like Turok, the one that came out in like 2009. There was like a Game Informer cover that was just like this amazing render of him like jumping in the air, stabbing a raptor or something like that. And obviously the game looked nothing like that ever.
Yeah,
But-
there's
Turok just looked like fog.
yeah.
That's what I
No,
remember.
the
Yeah.
2009 one was. A little
Oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
better.
So I wonder if this is symptomatic of just the age we live in and how media has changed so much. Because currently, like, there was a point not too long ago when it was pretty difficult to see the E3 demos in high res unless you were there.
Yeah.
And now it's like finding a 1080p stream of that is not too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's a reality. You can go do that, and then you can. I mean, nowadays it's like if you. I don't know how you guys do things here, but previous outlets I was at, we'd run into trouble where somebody would be busy ripping the trailers shown in a press conference, and we'd put them up, and they'd be like, "No, we already one step ahead of you there. You're going to take that down. This is
Yep.
copyrighted material,
Yep.
And it's that's insane that we have this much of like a close look at things ahead of time. But I mean, imagine how it used to do. Like if you've got a $10,000 gaming rig behind the scenes, and you're showing off this soon-to-be released game, and you're like, "Here's what it's going to look like." I swear, and there's no way of you guys to archive this, or you're gonna be watching, watching a stream on maybe Spike TV or something.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have the exact thing to refer back to.
I specifically have been to preview events where around the launch of the current gen consoles, where the consoles were put in a case and the lights were turned on, and behind a curtain was a high-end gaming PC running the game on the screen. And like it's deceptive, it's incredibly deceptive, because just a photo of that is that perception would imply that this console on this TV holding this controller is running this game, and that's not the case. It's absolutely not the case. So you actually had to peek around corners when we first started going to preview events for this generation. I think it was happening last generation too.
Totally.
But you would think that with nowadays we have more access than ever to things. So someone tweets a photo of like the Deadpool helmet or mask a couple months ago before we see like the high-res render of Ryan Reynolds in front of the fireplace. So you would think that we would get more stuff like that nowadays, but I think when it comes to video games, specifically AAA video games, the conversation is still very controlled. There's leaks every now and then, but in terms of what we see, it's still the best-looking version of that game, and what we get is not always that.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You would have thought that after the sort of fiasco surrounding Killzone 2, with that sort of fake thing that was like, no, this is what the game looks like. It's like, absolutely, this is not what the game looks like. You would have thought that would have sort of been the end of it, but it keeps happening, and I don't know, is the onus on us to call that out all the time? Is the onus on the consumer to vote with their wallet and just say like, hey, I'm not going to purchase this game because you falsely advertised it to me a year ago.
Yep. It's a
Is
little
there
bit of both.
all of the above on this one?
Yeah, and you can't blame it's hard to blame the publishers too, because like, yes, they're trying to get us excited, but they're trying to get places like Walmart excited.
I know.
Because and investors excited.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
everything's about
Oh,
money.
I think we should still blame them. I think it's fair. There's plenty of blame to go around. We can blame.
I blame you, Jared.
I'll take it. I'll accept your blame.
Okay.
There's always the kind of the big elephant in the room of something like E3 is that it's for big business. There are those guys you see who are in like designer jeans and nice loafers, and they have a black blazer and a cornflower blue shirt, and they are holding an iPad in a case. Those guys are there for work, and they have corporate accounts. Like they are businessmen.
Yeah, those guys have more power over the games industry than pretty much anyone.
Those
else
are the
in
guys that
business.
order, like, we're sitting at home, like, should we pre-order this game? And they go, should we pre-order 50,000 copies of this game for our North American retail
The
store?
difference between sold and shipped.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Totally.
I got depressing.
What do we got to talk about here?
Anything good?
Something fun with video games, because video games are fun.
Here's a nice one to think about. Beyond. What would be you guys' favorite city for an open world game to do? I would love to see a GTA set in Houston. They could have missions where you drive a taco cart and infiltrate NASA. Maybe not those things in the same mission, or one where you go to the rodeo. There is so much to do with that city. What do y'all think? Thanks, Luke Merrill.
Okay, I
That's a
am
great
on
question,
this
Luke.
one.
I always love this when this comes up.
Yeah, this is. I've wanted this game. Nobody will ever make it because it would cost so much. But I want Toontown. I want a.
Oh
Roger-
my God.
I want an open world Toontown.
So on that note, why do Toontown?
Shut it down.
Why do Toontown? I'd like to see an open world video game that is essentially what Toontown does, where you've got the different eras of cartoons
Yeah.
coexisting. But imagine that with video game characters, where you've got
Ooh.
like low poly PS1 renders in the same world as sprites, and like you've got
Right.
Frogger.
Oh,
and
so
Hubert
you want
hopping around.
an open world Wreck-It Ralph?
Yeah.
Essentially,
Yeah, I love that. I
Let's
mean,
have
if they
both
made
of
it,
these. Let's have both of these.
if
And,
license-wise they made it happen for the movie, then I mean, maybe they could make something like that happen for the game.
I
That
love,
would be awesome.
Yeah, I love
but you
car-
want it to be M-rated.
Oh, that's so good.
Open world M-rated Wreck-It Ralph, basically, where you can just travel from game to game.
Yeah, but I almost want Mickey Mouse more. One, because that would have portable holes. And portable holes are great.
Okay.
They're wonderful. And Judge Doom, I'd have Christopher Lloyd in my world. But no, I want this to happen. I would love to be able to play in a universe where I can have Q*bert and Master Chief side by side doing something that would be nuts. It's kind of wonderful.
So here's the
All-Stars thing.
cheat code though. With Max's version,
Yeah.
you would still get Mickey Mouse and
He'd be Mickey Manny,
Looney
though.
Tunes
No,
and stuff
but
like
you
that.
get,
Yeah,
you get
but-
Epic Mickey.
Yeah, I'd get
No,
Epic
no, you
Mickey.
get
And that's the
Mickey
thing.
Manny.
Like, I really,
Steamboat Willie.
Yeah.
really love cartoons, and there's so much. Cartoons have a wonderful, rich narrative lore that would work well for an open world game. Being able to visit those iconic locations and have them kind of tied together in neat ways that are part of cartoons, and the potential to have anvils dropped on you. But I mean, I want to go back to Tiny Toon Adventures, and I want to go, and I want to have Babs Bunny and Wacko Warner in my RPG party.
Yeah.
That just sounds great, but. That doesn't take anything from away from I just want both of these games to exist. Can
Oh,
one,
yeah. No,
one
all
and
the
two,
games should exist.
yeah. These are because that's a great idea.
I want an
love
open world, busy world of Richard Scarry.
it.
What do people do all day? They drive cars and trucks and things that go.
That game
Yeah.
existed.
Huckle and
It
Lowly
was
Worm.
for the Coleco Atom computer, and I
Was it
owned
open world though?
Well, I mean,
Was it
it's
seamless transitions between areas?
actually it was 4 screens, and back then that was pretty big.
Are we still here?
We're still here.
Okay, I was just wondering.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess that a 4-screen game for the Coleco Apple computer was not open world,
It was
especially
it was,
one based on a worm that wears a hat and drives an.
You could
apple.
wander anywhere you wanted and do whatever you wanted within the parameters of the universe. I
No,
think.
part of the reason I picked this question, I find it really odd that we don't see more games set in San Francisco, and I don't think have we ever seen a game set in Vancouver? Those are two places where tons and tons of games are made, and they're both an incredibly small area.
There's actually a lot of games that are set in San Francisco, but they're never. It's never like San Francisco.
Right, but, like,
it's always just
recently.
like
It was Driver San Francisco.
Driver
Yeah.
San Francisco was hilarious.
like the
because-
Golden Gate Bridge makes its way into everything. Like
Yeah.
it gets blown up 4 times a day.
Yeah,
in
it was
movie
Advanced
theaters.
Warfare.
De-
Yeah.
Defiance was set in
Okay.
San Francisco,
Yeah, fair.
but a game set in San Francisco would be the most expensive video game ever.
No,
How come?
it's not one bit. It's
Our
7
hill-
it's
our-
just
It's the
you
real
didn't get
estate.
rent?
Nope,
It's just the
it's
real
was
estate.
like
7
a real
miles.
estate joke.
Yeah,
Oh, terrible, awful. I don't know. We've
I'm
got,
not funny.
We've
You know,
got
that's the problem.
we've got like San Francisco for those unfamiliar.
That
is,
was very funny.
Is 7 miles by 7 miles, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
roughly the same size as a lot of open world games. That's around the same size
Yeah.
as GTA 5.
Yeah.
Which is obviously a huge, massive undertaking.
You
but-
also have this crazy hodgepodge of urban parks, of topography, of geography, of
sick jumps.
sick jumps,
sick jumps.
very, like,
Rush.
amazing ethnic neighborhoods.
Do
Like,
cool boat
absolutely.
stuff.
No, don't do that cool boat stuff.
I
You're
want-
not that Larry Ellison's.
I
Yeah, you could do cool. There's a whole
desperately
bay
want
for the
Sleeping
cool.
Dogs 2 to be in San Francisco.
Maybe-
I don't know
I
if that'll
would
happen, but it would make so
love
much
that.
sense.
Yeah.
'cause you
would've
drive
sold
around
Has
and-
poop rendering technology reached the place they could accurately depict a San Francisco
Kojima
sidewalk?
has made some huge breakthroughs
In poop rendering?
They've rendered very realistic horse poop in real
right.
time.
There's that.
1080p,
All right.
60 frames a second.
So I think we're ready for San Francisco,
1080p.
though, because
You guys mentioning all the cartoon stuff. I want an open world Adventure Time game. That's not bad like all the other Adventure Time games.
that would be so good.
yeah,
that
I
would
want to
be
go around
neat.
the land of Ooh.
Yeah.
So much
Think about
out.
that. Yeah, I just think it's odd. I've also talked to game designers about this too, and I'm like, why not do it here? Why not do it there? Or whatever. And the answer usually is that they want to design something. They don't want to just imitate it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even GTA like takes a lot of liberties. Sleeping Dogs, I think I've never been to Hong Kong, but I think it was fairly. They tried to be sort of accurate to the
Yeah.
basic layout. But like Driver San Francisco, like you can't drive it. You can barely get up to 50 miles an hour in San
Totally,
Francisco.
yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
just doesn't work.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people forget is that real world cities are not designed the same way video game cities
They're
are
not made
designed.
to be fun.
Like, yeah, to navigate a real world city is not usually enjoyable. It's usually just like, oh, I gotta make a left. I can't go straight here. Why can't?
I mean,
Damn it.
also like doors in video games are generally twice as wide as a real door would be.
Yeah.
Just based on that.
maybe you could do something like what Big Hero 6 did with like San Fran Tokyo.
I was just about to say that.
That's
I was just
awesome.
about to say I would love a melding of two cities.
That's
so you
really
can still do
smart.
something creative, but yes, exactly what Big Hero 6 did.
Yep.
Jared, you're a smart one.
What about
But not funny.
What if the future is making your own open world games? I mean,
actually
we already have map creation. I feel like that's not the in this post Minecraft world. I feel like that's not the most far fetched.
I had an idea a few years ago for an open world video game that worked with a culmination of like 3D rendering and Google Maps. So basically, you can be like,
yeah.
I want to go to this town, and then it would render it as a 3D video game, and you would be able to actually design the waypoints around, making that a fun place to travel through.
So cool.
Yeah, that's super
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
No, as these editors get more powerful, the tools that come with the games that we have now, yeah, I think that does become a reality. And then you also have something like No Man's Sky, where you've got like a procedurally generated universe out there waiting for you too. That's made in interesting ways.
Yeah, I don't know. Despite, I can't imagine that we're close to having sort of user-created content on that level yet. Like, I know Minecraft is huge, but aside from that, like, all the other sort of creation games, I feel like have had more promise than delivered.
Well, look at like SimCity.
Yeah.
Like that's the detail in there, you know, like they had crowds, they had people, they had like functioning things.
Yeah.
And the game kind of holds your hand to a certain degree of like being like, you're not going to have to lay down, you know, individual railroad spikes. You know, you're like, the minutia is kind of handled for you.
Yeah.
And you can also kind of be like, sort of automate some of it.
Yeah, but I mean, there still hasn't been a user-created Little Big Planet level that's as good as a Mario level. Yeah, like there's
some pretty impressive ones technically. I agree that the fun factor hasn't always landed. Although there's some pretty neat stuff. But I do think that maybe with the right tools, you brought up Sin City. That's a great point. You know, when Wright was working on Raid for Bungling Bay, he's making a kind of an arcadey action game. He discovered that the levels were more fun to make with his level designer he built as a development tool.
Oh yeah.
Than the game than Bungling Bay was to play. And he's like, I need to make a game out of this. Then he made Sin City.
Yeah.
Maybe out there's an engine somebody could create
That's
designed
actually fun. The art of creation is fun.
for this purpose, and then maybe we get that game. Especially if there's tools to seamlessly weld places together, and create the kind of mission structures we want. That could happen.
My problem is that the horse has to lead the cart a little bit, like with a lot of these things. Like we've seen things
Speaking of Italy.
Yeah, speaking of Italy, horses are taking over the streets. They're getting rid of their Ferraris and they're just getting horse cars from here on out. That was Speaking of Italy.
I
Brought
don't
to you
know.
by pasta, meatballs, and a nice wedding soup. But I look at games like Project Spark and I just switch, transform into a normal human being again. And I feel like those games aren't inherent. They don't really show you a really fun game and then show you here's cool stuff you can make with it. They kind of leave a lot of that up to the audience. And like Little Big Planet, I think it's like a beautiful game, and it's actually very fun once you actually dive into it a little bit. But I don't think that any of those games are flat out as fun as like a Mario game right out of the box. But if it was, and then from there they said, here's what we did.
Yeah.
Now you do this, and it just worked from start to finish. I think that like that would have the potential to really.
Well, that's what I'm imagining as a game where you build a world. Building the world is the game, and it's fun, like SimCity.
Yeah.
And when you're done, you've got something somebody can play, and that's also fun. There's got to be a way to pull that
For some reason,
off.
I'm thinking of something asynchronous now, to where you're building something and I'm existing in the city at the same time. And so it's like Dark City or Inception.
Oh, man.
Where like it's like a third-person open-world game, but everything is changing, and like an invisible hand of God is moving.
Well, that would be like
Venture
that Looney Tunes
capitalists, send your
cartoon.
check to.
On that note, what about a asynchronous survival horror game where you play as a sim, but you've got a 13-year-old boy playing as the Overlord? You go in the swimming pool and the ladder disappears. And you're like, I'm gonna drown! Somebody launched a bunch of fireworks in the living room. There are rugs everywhere.
My house is full of dogs.
My door disappeared. How do I leave?
I have to live in the poop room forever.
Somebody destroyed my toilet while I was using it.
But there might actually be a way to make that work. There used to be this old mod for Quake called Predator. It was a homemade mod, and one person was the Predator, everybody else was a Space Marine. The Predator was far more powerful than the other characters. He was semi-transparent, awesome arsenal of weapons. The only way to score points was to score a kill as the Predator, killing a Marine. The only way to become the Predator was to kill the Predator. So everybody's working together constantly to kill the Predator. The moment they kill him, they become the Predator, and now it's everybody against them. And they just kept switching off that with that asynchronous thing. There might be a way to make that 13-year-old boy horror fantasy thing work out like that, where you were trying to find a way to kill the evil god of your universe and then become him. I'd play that.
I mean, that's kind of what they're going for with stuff like, I don't know, Fable Legends.
Yeah, but it doesn't involve
there
me
was
drowning in a
that
swimming
canceled Shadow Realms thing that BioWare was doing, which they really just need to drive home the fact that this is you're a awful little teenage boy.
Yeah, I agree. This is horrible sadistic end of it. That
I just really want The Sims. I just like the idea of that actually being a realistic horror situation.
Sounds wonderful.
Just
All the women in this town are bats.
We're in bat country.
Can we talk about some Axiom Verge?
Yeah, Marty,
let's go to the drop. Let's
what's
go to
up?
the D-Drop.
The drop. All right.
So we trimmed the drop. Sorry, Ryan Clements.
Also, the News Ghost.
Love you, Ryan.
The News Ghost apparently died last week.
Oh, he hasn't made an appearance lately.
So here's some new releases. MLB The Show. Late review. We got it late. What's up with that? Is it a game about baseball? Finally,
it's a game
MLB The Show, the ongoing series following the adventures of your favorite sports heroes.
Such as
I
Barry.
can't wait for MLB The Movie or MLB
Barry
The
the
Movie The
Bonds,
Game.
Barry, the Mr. Bonds.
He's
Yeah,
not.
the
He's
Monsters.
not in that game.
Yeah, we got the game late.
There's the Pence Hunter.
We
He's
should
in
have
it.
Hunter Pence review because Ryan's going on vacation, so he can't review.
Okay.
Can Hunter Pence review a video game that he is
We could ask.
starring in?
I think that's illegal.
That'd be like letting a League of Legends review League of Legends.
Hunter Pence does what he wants.
It's true.
Except
Shout out to
have
Hunter
a
Pence.
healthy arm. Because
Huh?
the arm is not healthy.
Did he
right
hurt
now.
his arm?
He hurt his arm.
Oh. From
So-
too many high fives?
MLB The Show
That
comes
guy's
out
nice.
this week. There's Shadow
like him.
Tower, a PS1 classic from Software, horror RP.
Say
From Software.
I don't know why I wrote horror. I meant the horror. The horror.
Yeah,
I don't know
Marty-
why I
Max,
read
every
horror
time you read
twice.
these things, it's always like it's the first time you've ever read.
I just
Marty wrote these
jump
things
over
like
the
this.
second horror. There's a typo. If you see
Okay,
from
look,
Software.
between Marty doubling up on the horror, which is apparently very scary, and then just the fact that it's From Software, which is always there's no like punctuation mark you can do to make it
I know,
just
that's
to
always
emphasize that they don't capitalize it.
a lot of people have created horror RPGs, but we
From
created
s-
the first horror RPG.
Oh.
From Software Company, from Software. That's a real sentence.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I haven't played this game, but From Software obviously just released Bloodborne. They did the Soul series,
Yep.
and you can play one of their PS1 classics this week. Shadow
Is it
Tower.
available on the PlayStation Vita?
Are the PS1 games available on Vita? Probably.
Some of them are.
We should do a let's
some
play.
are.
We should do a let's play of this thing and see if it's anything like
Play it on the Vita?
Bloodborne.
Cool. And then finally, Axiom Verge.
Yes.
You guys have been playing that, yeah?
This
Which
a
is,
video we
I
could talk about.
believe, slightly discounted for PlayStation Plus members.
Yeah, it's $20 normally. And I think it's like $16, $17.
$17 or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah. It's only on PS4 right now. It's coming to Vita.
And PC.
Yeah, and PC.
Yeah.
It's going to be cross-buy, cross-save on Vita when it does come out. So if you buy it now, you will be able to play it on Vita.
Yeah.
I think they said May. Maybe it's coming on Vita.
Yep.
So I reviewed the game. I gave it a 7.9. In case you didn't know, this is a very 8-bitty Metroidvania made by one guy.
One guy.
Thomas Happ, which is an incredible feat. The game pays a lot of homage to the original Metroid and to Bionic Commando. And it has this, this sort of open space world, and you're going around and getting new powers and going back to areas and unlocking new things that you couldn't get to before. And I really liked the combat in the game. There's a lot of cool weapons.
Yep.
I liked the active traversal, but I thought the map and the environments were a little archaic.
Yeah.
That was sort of my
yeah.
major problem with it is that it's very easy to get lost, and not lost in a fun way.
And it's interesting to ding something for being archaic when it's so nostalgia driven to begin with,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we wouldn't ding the graphics for being archaic.
No, absolutely not.
But I do think that there was that era, and we've talked about this a few weeks ago when we were talking about this game to begin with, but there was that era where we were getting Metroidvania games every year, right? Sometimes a couple
Oh,
times a year.
absolutely.
It's this beautiful era we take for granted, and now it's gone. Although now we have games like Axiom Verge, we have Ori, they're
Yeah,
sort of coming back.
Guacamelee.
Guacamelee, of course.
Cave Story.
Yep, Cave Story, some of my favorites. But I think that in this game, it does get kind of lost in the mix
Yeah.
of actually trying to find yourself. It's not that the environments were too similar. It's just that I don't feel they were incredibly well designed. Like, I thought that the way they connected with each other made it very difficult to sort of navigate.
Totally.
There were the obvious visual cues are you come up from an elevator, and on your right is a red door, and on your left is a regular door, and you're like, well, I better go here and save before I
'Cause
go
the
to
red
the
door
right
is a boss door.
and die. So stuff like that helps, but I felt like it was like a really, really incredible Super Metroid cover album.
Yeah.
But sometimes you want to listen to the Jamaican version of Karma Police, and sometimes you just want to hear the original. Like it's. I'm glad it exists. It's really cool. It's a very awesome. What? Have you ever heard that?
No.
I love awkward covers.
There's a reggae version of Karma Police that I was like, man, nice work.
Fair enough.
And I feel like I'm so happy it exists,
Yeah,
but
totally.
I don't know if it surpasses the source material.
Yeah.
Or that it really needs to.
No, absolutely. And it's funny because we are actually in the minority when it comes to that. Like, the game has been getting incredible reviews.
Yeah.
Like, the game has been getting, like, tens and perfects. So maybe we're just insane. But, no, to me...
I do love it. I do want to
think
state that.
A 7.9 means it's at the highest good it can be without being great.
Definitely sounds like it's worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where numerous points in the game, I would get a new power and be like, all right, I don't know where to go now, so I'm going to literally retrace the entire map.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty thorough when it comes to games. I'm thorough when it comes to games and loving. Those are the two
both
things.
those things.
It's a good list. I like
You're
how you rank
a
those.
thorough lover. How would you rate your lover? Thorough.
Thorough. But then I would have to make a complete circle of the map. And then finally, like, you get to the 3/4 marker, like, oh, okay, this is where I needed to use that. Okay, that's good. And then an hour later, I'd get another power and be like, okay, back to make another big circle of the map. And a lot of it's just going through the exact same areas I've been to until I get to that point where I'm like, okay, this is where I can use it.
You know, dating is a lot like Metroidvanias in that you can't access certain areas until you have certain things, like a job or a cool car.
And also, the two best ones have already come out, so it's just downhill from here.
Wow.
But yeah, Axiom Verge is out now.
Yeah.
It's
super cool. Check it out.
yeah, it's really cool. I actually really love the music in it. Is like kind of understated. I don't think a lot of people are talking about how awesome that is. The art direction is a little less Super Metroid, and it kind of feels like a TurboGrafx game to me.
It
And I don't mean
it
that.
looks very Contra.
Yeah, and I don't mean that in a bad way.
I like
just,
the TurboGrafx comparison. That's really good because you had this kind of flat 8-bit style but with a 16-bit color palette on the TC16, and it was really well done. Axiom Verge does look like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Super Metroid had sort of like winks to survival horror. Like you'd see a
Yeah.
dead spaceman with a thing crawling out of his head every now and then, or like there were these big bugs, but it was a little more cartoony. Whereas Axiom Verge definitely does feel kind of splatterhousey at times.
Oh yeah, there's like blood clots everywhere in the environment that explode.
Yeah, it's gross. And there's like there's this enemy. I don't know what he is. He's sort
Like
of like
the zombie thing.
Yeah,
That thing looks scary.
where it makes this like 16-bit wail. It's like. And it just comes running at you, and you're like, ah! And you shoot it like crazy until it's
It
dead.
is a little bit Abadox in places.
Yeah. So it's actually a little scary, but there's a lot of Metroid cues there, like to open certain doors, to get in certain areas. There's the elevators that go up and down. There's basically the Chozo ball things that have the powers in them and
Yeah,
stuff.
there's like instead of a morph ball, you get like a little spider drone
Yeah.
that goes into small places.
There are a lot of weapons in this game. They actually throw a lot of them at you very early on, and you have this weapon wheel that you're cycling through, and that's where I found it sort of cumbersome at times. You would cross a fragment of something you'd never seen before, and you'd shoot it with you'd hit it with your regular weapon, then your other 4 sub weapons, and then your drill, and then you get this thing that basically there's broken pixels all over the game that you have to restore that turn into platforms. They're basically like kill screens. And you get this ray gun that's like a big, Luigi's Mansion vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
And you hose down these platforms and they bring them back to life. So you would find something in the game, you'd be like, should I hose it down or drill it or shoot it with all 5 of my things? Oh, none of those?
Oh, maybe I can't do anything with this for another
I'll
hour.
see you soon, I guess. And then you'd go disappear and then you'd come back. So, but yeah, great. We have some complaints here and there, some quirks, but I'm so happy this thing exists.
Totally. And again, made by one person is insanity.
What's your favorite Metroidvania?
I mean, aside from the Metroids, I'd probably say I really do love Zero Mission, and I love Area of Sorrow for Castlevania, and I do Cave Story. I like, but I'm not as crazy about it because I think it has that sort of like that weird weapon up, weapon down system that happens when you're basically upgrading and downgrading on the fly. Basically,
I love that.
You do?
I love that.
Because I feel like if I'm you're it's like kicking a man when he's down. Like it's basically like, hey, your wife left you and you don't have your car payments anymore, and now you lost your job.
And you have cancer.
And you have cancer. Everything bad happens in a row.
Yeah.
Whereas other games are just sort of like you're getting better and better and better and stronger and stronger. And there's less like grinding in Cave Story that there are in like the Castlevania games. I really appreciate. I mean, it's mindless, but I love running back and forth in an area, killing a wyvern 1,000 times until he drops that the right card.
Cave Story makes you do that less. Yeah. And it works. Also, Cave Story kind of made me. I got a little teary in the middle.
Yeah. Symphony of the Night, obviously, because it does that. Thing, that magical thing that I won't spoil.
So many incredible magical things in that game.
One of the best secret ones was Dust and Elysian Tale. That's another thing that like one guy, Dean Dodrill, I think his name.
Couldn't get past the art style.
Yeah.
Again, one guy like really incredible, but I just am totally turned off by Anthro stuff. So it looked very deviant art to me, and so.
You didn't want the one animal to have sex with the other animal?
Is that part of being a thorough lover?
Yeah.
It always is.
I like Guacamelee. Guacamelee
yeah.
was
Ooh,
one of my
that's really
favorite.
good,
I gave that game a perfect score. I love that game so much when it came out, and I just dying to see what Drinkbox does.
Have we talked about Severed on this show?
Yeah, we talked about it.
Did we?
After PAX.
I think that's got a lot of potential.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
very
go
cool.
back and listen to that. I'm so excited for that game. It is barely a Metroidvania in that there are things you can't get to until you can.
Yep.
But otherwise, I'm really excited to see what they're doing next.
I was happy to see there's a DS game that didn't get a lot of attention. It's almost a Metroidvania. It's called Monster Tale.
Yeah.
And it came out right at the end of the DS's life cycle. But I just found out they're going to re-release it for 3DS with upgrades. And
Yep.
so check it out. It's a Monster Tale remake, and Monster Tale was wonderful. So do play it. It's a great game.
You know what was incredible that got very little love and unfortunately was just slightly just in the unfair hard area was Aliens.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
God.
no.
Infestation.
Infestation. I'm
Yes.
playing that.
Yeah,
I'm playing that right now.
It came out in the shadow of Colonial Marines, and it was actually really good. Unlike
That was a game where you had like a
Marines.
finite number of Marines, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like if you lost them,
And
you're done.
you had to rescue them. They
Yeah.
were like extra lives, but they would pop up from.
And you got a
Yeah.
pool of Marines, and it is hard to keep those suckers alive. Now I'm playing through it right now.
Really?
Max. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're
on
and
this
yeah.
podcast. He hasn't paid
no,
attention.
but right now I'm playing. I found it for $4 at a GameStop.
Yep.
And,
That's a buried DS treasure.
it is a wonderful game.
Also, like the thing that's really bad about that is it's one of those things where you had to aim like up and down, you know, to get the things on the ground or the things in the ceiling or whatever. But to the point where it was just like sometimes you just want to shoot something in the face and have that not be the part that's
Yep.
slowing you down.
Yep.
Just tedium versus challenge, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's cool that they still make games like that.
Agreed.
Speaking of games that they just make like that, a segue for you. It's time for the Essential 50, and today I brought one of my good friends whose name is PaRappa the Rapper.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not
I heard
allowed to
about
be
that
here 'cause I'm
quirky-
allergic to dogs.
That hip hop sensation.
Not that Ram Jamma Lammy.
Jamalami can sit down and just pay some respects for a moment because PaRappa the Rapper was the one who started it all.
Yep.
PaRappa the Rapper is a rapping dog who wears a hat with a frog on it, and PaRappa is trying to impress Sunny Funny something, some kind of
Doug
love
Funny.
interest, something, whatever. But in order to do that, he must rap. He must do raps, and he must do raps in a ways that will get him to accomplish things, such as learning how to cook a cake, or drive a car, or get a job, or fight a flea market, or whatever the hell he does in that
Get
game.
into a toilet.
Wait in line.
Before,
wait in line
before
at a
his guts
concert.
That's a
evacuate
game
themselves.
where you have to rap your way into a bathroom because you gotta drop a D.
Yeah.
The thing that's really worth noting about PaRappa the Rapper is that it's one of the first kind of modern rhythm games.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Especially stateside. And it was also one of the first kind of really, what the hell is that, PlayStation games. It came out in 1996. I remember, this is to go down the nostalgia hole, I remember seeing it advertised on TV, immediately loving the art style and the concept, but completely misunderstanding the premise of the game, because how do you sell a rhythm game when no one's ever heard of that before?
Yeah.
I thought it was a game where you made music videos, and I was like, I love music videos. I'm in 6th grade. I want to play this. And it's definitely not. It's a game where you press buttons to rap, and I was really bad at that because I had just picked up a PlayStation controller for the first time a year or two prior.
Well, luckily for you, it wasn't a game where you made music videos, because all of those games were awful, and they made a lot of those games on the Sega CD.
That Marky Mark one is gold.
Yep.
I don't know what you're talking about.
CNC Music Factory
That's brilliant.
remix.
I have
Shop.
I have the Spice
Yeah.
Girls game, which
Oh, yeah,
weirdly
Spice
enough has a nude cheat. You
Really?
type in a button combo in the very beginning. That also has rhythm game elements to tie this to PaRappa the Rapper.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
The thing that's bad is
Not
they
that.
all look like
Anything
bad
but
low
that.
poly Bratz dolls.
Oh God.
Yeah. Yep. But so they recreated this photo of them all sitting backwards in chairs, and you can't see anything. But
What do you
it
mean
is-
backwards of chairs, like AC Slater style, or are you
Yes.
talking about like you can see their butts?
Like no, like they're all like sitting over the edge of chairs.
I'm just
like,
trying to figure
I'm
it
just
out.
imagining Jeff Goldblum in
You
Jurassic
can't see
Park.
anything. I managed to get
Okay.
past the ESRB or whatever the hell was in place at that point. Oddly enough, someone who worked on that is my pal Dean Evans, who was one of the guys
No,
behind
Blood Dragon?
he worked on that a long time ago. But anyway, sorry. Back to PaRappa the Rapper. Enough about Spice Girls, naked Blood Dragon, whatever.
Don't
Yeah.
say those words.
PaRappa the Rapper. Yeah, it was just it's a little bit mind blowing. I kind of was. I've kind of come to accept rhythm games at this point. I actually hate rhythm games. I really don't even enjoy rhythm games, but I think PaRappa the Rapper is worth noticing because really kind of relevant to the fact that early PlayStation stuff was crazy and weird and experimental, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that it kind of grew out of. PlayStation exists because Ken Kutaragi was trying to get this box made, which started out as a combination Super Nintendo with a CD drive. And the thing we really have a hard time kind of processing is up until that point, there really wasn't a whole lot in the way of optical media being used to package games. The CD-ROM was still a pretty new concept at the time.
Yep.
And Sony, on the other hand, they were one of the companies that helped kind of back the CD as a thing for music.
Right.
And it was because Ken Kutaragi got kind of teamed up with the Sony music team type people, and they knew how to approach creatives. Like, because if you're making hardware, you don't really have to deal with creative types too much. I mean, at that point you didn't. There'd be people making games and software, but to go after like a studio is inherently a creative place. And so they had this. I mean, I could just very easily kind of grasp the idea of PaRappa the Rapper being something that's much more appealing to that type of person. In the same way that we're seeing Sony now going after weird indies and stuff because they're clearly backing the hell out of the strange indie scene and all the PSN stuff that we're getting. But anyway, I don't know. I love PaRappa because it's like a rhythm game is a totally commonplace thing. That's a common format for iPhone games. People playing these left and right. Yeah. But at the time, it was this weird game about a rapping dog.
It was it was really funny too. It was one of those games that was just like slapstick, goofy, dopey, but really just lovably funny. And I remember like going to friends' houses. Like I would go to like a party in high school, and there'd be like 12 people sitting around drinking beers that they stole from their dads, just pointing at the screen, laughing and clapping, watching.
Awesome party game.
Yeah. And I remember like
the first time
I saw it, I was like, "What the hell is this?" And it made me walk up to the TV and look at it closely to be like, "Are we watching some Japanese television channel that you bootlegged?"
Yeah, it's called You Rappin' Awful.
Yeah. Well, it looked more, video games we'd always dreamed they were going to look like cartoons.
Yeah.
Well, this one finally did. That was a new thing. That wasn't possible before that. And you're right. You made the point about the optical media. It was cheap. That let them put music on it. It let them make it. I forgot to talk. The optical media was cheap, plus it let them put music on it. It allowed them to experiment because of the low budget. The PlayStation was easier to develop for than most video game systems had been because you didn't have to write an assembly anymore. So, you could do all kinds of fooling around. And they were able to make exactly what they wanted in a relatively short period of time for a relatively low cost. You got a cartoon, you got great music, you got good gameplay. It was funny, it was bright, it was pretty, had a wonderfully consistent art style. Everybody was flat.
I love the camera angles in the game were awesome. It was filmed like a middle school talent show where there were like 3 different dads at different parts of the stage. And it was so goofy, but I loved it for that.
It worked well. Charming. And the music is still a lot of fun.
Yeah, still super catchy.
You gotta believe.
Yeah. God. Thumbs up to PaRappa the Rapper and his friends.
I would love to see that game come back as like a PSN game.
I want to see like an 8 Mile, but with PaRappa.
Yeah, that's great.
Spaghetti.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just like a dog throwing up because he's nervous.
Is that why dogs
and he gets home and his mom's sleeping with a giant onion man.
Yeah.
Yo, Mom, what's wrong?
Also played by Kim Basinger.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great addition to the Essential 50 there, though. It embodies, again, what made the PlayStation platform unique and wonderful.
Totally.
Love that game.
Cool.
I like the idea of Kim Basinger rolling out of bed in 2015 being like, I'll do the PaRappa game.
Chop Master Onion. Cool. So that's our show, I think.
That's right.
Anything you guys want to lead out with, or
now? How can people write to us?
Yeah, people can write
they
to us.
Email us beyond@ign.com.
That's right.
Join the Podcasts Beyond Facebook group.
The secret club of full of meat cutters and radioactive submarine therapists.
Totally.
And
yeah, and just generally awesome people.
I
and
guess.
milkman,
also,
plumbers,
we're gonna
associate
start
pastors.
a thing next week because the April's PlayStation Plus games haven't been revealed yet. But we're talking about wanting to do a thing where we sort of do like a book club with one of the free
that's
games.
great.
Seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so once that gets revealed, we'll post on the PlayStation Plus, or we'll post on the Facebook group.
Yep.
We'll say like, hey, this is the game we're going to be playing. We'll be playing whatever the game is.
I like it.
And then we'll talk about it every week. We'll bring in emails, what you guys think, short segments.
I hope they're good games that we enjoy to play.
If they're bad games,
Enjoy to
we
play.
misery loves suffering.
They will be the good games that we enjoy to play with the games in the
Speaking
consoles.
of games that may not be good to play but are worth playing historically anyway.
Yeah, we're going to be playing Star Wars games once a week, all the way up until Star Wars Episode 7: The Force Awakens releases in theaters. We did our first one, which is the seminal PlayStation 1 classic, Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi.
Yeah.
Which is the Star Wars Toshinden clone for the PlayStation 1.
Going back to when they were like, what if we made a fighting game in 3D? What could go wrong?
So what are the odds of that one getting on the Essential 50 list?
Well, you know what I learned when I put that video up? There are 2 or 3 people on the planet Earth that are heavily invested in proving that Star Wars Masters of Terras Kasi is a fighting game classic, and they are on our message boards.
Of course
I learned that. But beyond that, no.
They're using the 30 minutes of Wi-Fi they get from prison each week.
No, some of them were very nice. Some of them were very nice people. I don't want to make fun.
That game looked really cool. That was one of those games that looked really cool in the magazines that you read.
You
Well, it was
can't know
also-
how bad it is until you play it.
I mean, it goes
Yeah.
back to what we were talking about before, the era of fighting games, right? And this was it was a thing that everyone loved, fighting games, and another thing everyone loved, Star Wars.
Yep. So last week was Star Wars Masters of Terrascasi. This week is going to be Star Wars Yoda Stories, another
I playing
amazing
that with
Star
you?
Wars games. No,
No, I already
Marty and I
played
did
it.
that
It
one.
was on
No,
Game Boy.
you and I are doing
sent you a-
you and I are doing Rogue Squadron.
Okay,
See,
good.
we're also going to
Oh,
play.
wow,
Here's the
Brian
thing,
is playing good
right?
ones.
We're also going to play good Star Wars games. It's not bad. There's so many Star Wars games, and they run the gamut from awful to we're playing Dark Forces.
Are we playing Dark Forces, which
we're
was
playing Dark
available on
Forces.
PlayStation?
I have a Yoda story
so-
for you.
oh.
He once tried to make out with a frog.
Was he thorough?
That's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
he
a
got
good lie.
very.
He was
got
on
very
Dagobah for so
sad.
long that he married a frog.
But then the frog hopped away, and he. Felt
Anyway,
bad 'cause
guys,
his
watch
wife
these
left
Star
him.
Wars Let's Plays.
We're gonna be-
Also, we're building up our IGN Star Wars Wiki, and we need people to write. So if you want to write for IGN's Star Wars Wiki, send me a message. You know how to find me.
Yeah.
And let me know. We're looking for people to fill out IGN's Wiki Red Squadron, and
Sounds
also
like a super bomb bad time.
it. You know what? It's actually a Super Bomb good time.
He meant bad as in like.
I know what he
bad.
meant. I just that Super Bomb bad racing.
Misa gonna stop
That
listening to the
sounds
show now.
so wizard.
It is so wizard indeed. Ninja Gaiden. All right, there we are.
Oh,
So.
okay, so yeah, that's it. You can follow us all on Twitter. I'm Max Scoville. Marty is McBiggity.
Yep.
Brian is Agent Bizzle, and
right.
Jared is Petty, Jared.
Yo.
Yep.
Cool.
Go to IGN.com/originals. Watch some of the new short films that Max and I have
Sure.
been making.
Ken-
You can call
Films,
them that.
Something like
Ken,
that.
Ken Burns, the Brian Altano.
Mini
That's right.
movies.
Mini-
Watch some of the cinema.
Some of the short cinematic treats.
Sure,
Yeah,
something
some
like
of
that.
the French New Waves.
What are
You
your
won't
most-
even need a projector.
What beautiful and heady things do we have to watch right now on the original channel? I'm curious
What have
what's
we
going
done?
on.
We threw pie at each other.
Bootlegged a Mario amiibo.
I ate a bacon pizza.
Yeah.
Max and I pooped.
What?
Sure.
My eyes blew
Good.
up.
Yeah, sure. Fine.
I-
Yeah.
I-
Okay.
Real
Very-
movie.
All
movie
right. That's
stuff.
it. That's all right. That's enough.
Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
lovers.
All right.
Awesome.
Beyond.
Beyond.
Beyond.